Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, you got mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place, singing, we will love you. It's true, Mr. Miles. Frank Sinatra and Freddie Mercury were man-on-man lovers. Buddy, you're a young man, hard man, shouted in the street, gonna take on the world someday. You got blood on your face, you big disgrace, waving your banner all over the place, singing, we will love you. You son of a bitch, anti-tracker! You take that back!
It's the anti-tracker.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical difficulty.
What is going on, YouTube? Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Tracker here, and good to see you. If you haven't seen it already, the reason for the name of today's live stream is Mr. Miles did an incredible job helping me with the latest and greatest board video. And Yosef throws a couple of euros in. I'll get to you in just a minute. I know there's a couple of super chats already. Thank you, guys. And so if you have not yet watched the new Borg video, holy crap, do you owe it to yourself to watch. I think Mr. Miles, it was freaking awesome. So, to the chat we go. Yosef was first, says hi. Thomas was a quick second, says hi. Mr. Miles, of course, then says he was first and that Yosef and Thomas are fake news. Luke Fovark is in the house and says, bonjour. How you doing, Luke? Professor puts $2 in. Thank you so much, Professor McCoy's Pop Culture Reviews. I truly appreciate it, and says, hello there. Josh says, Mr. Miles, this is let's see. Josh says, Mr. Miles, you're the last of the Mr. Miles. Okay. Mike Richards is here from Columbus, Ohio. Good to see you, Mike. And Thomas, with his traditional $1.99, says, the Borg are Frank and Freddy's children. Number 17.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
And that is indeed true. There is no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality. Yosa says, sorry, Thomas, pure luck. Sorry, Mr. Miles, but no. And then Mr. Miles says, to quote a Romulan ambassador, it's a fake. Well, thank you. Mr. Miles says, update your credits. I do need to do that. I absolutely do need to do that. Luke Fovark is saying, Professor McCoy's Pop Culture Reviews, General Kino McCoy. Not sure what you're talking about there, but Yosef puts a couple euros and says, can't remember the kelp number, but hi. So now you got making me look stuff up. And Luke Fovark with 100 euros to Mr. Miles. Holy crap, Mr. Miles, look at that. That's not fair. That's not fair. What about me, Luke? I feel bad now. And just, I want money. I do. But in the meantime, let me first and foremost put out the, where is it? Number 21 is the one you're after, Yosef. So let me grab that for you.
And Borg. It is true with cooking with the Borg and the Borg. The guy with the cool, and we're gonna make the kelp. Here's bring out the kelp.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, kelp, get it in the pot.
Get in the pot here.
And then we stir and stir the kelp. That's a good kelp.
Okay. And there we go. So, thank you, Yosef. And then Mike Richards says, Mr. Miles equals editor supreme. Indeed, that is 100% true. Mr. Miles, that was a great work. And Mr. Miles says, didn't even notice the title. Yes, that's right. Today's live stream is dedicated to you, my friend. Rock Solid says last. Mr. Miles says, yay, me, and first. Josh says, but Mr. Miles, you're a fake. All of us are just computer programs on Anti-Tricker's computer to keep him from going crazy. That is true. Rock Solid says, Mr. Miles did a great job, but I do have an issue with your take. Not everything needs to relate to TOS. No, not everything needs to relate to TOS, but I do think that the single-celled brain monsters from Operation Annihilate are the best fit for a proto-Borg. I know that some people have suggested the Binars, and I know, like, Darren Wagner actually put a comment on the video about the Binars. But here's the problem with the Binars. The Binars do not have a collective consciousness that takes over the individual. They simply communicate through their cybernetic implants and can share thoughts. But they're not forced, their will is not taken away from them. Besides that, the Binars do not assimilate non-Binars. It would seem that their technology only works on Binars. So I think that the Binars are an interesting case study, but they don't quite fit the profile of the Borg. And so there's Luke's 100 euros. This goes directly to Mr. Miles' pocket, and Mr. Miles is laughing. Oh, so you don't want it? Okay, that's fine. Actually, Mr. Miles, if you will please, because you know I have a horrible memory, remind me about this time next month that Luke did that, because you know how the delay works. That 100 euros will show up in the Google payout on December 21st. So I need a reminder, because I don't want to forget. Mr. Miles is going to get a nice paycheck next month anyway, because the last video and this video are both doing quite well, and Mr. Miles gets a substantial chunk of the ad revenue from this channel. But I want to make sure not to forget that as well. Sci-Fi Nation says, greetings to Anti-Trigger and fellow nerds. Commander Shran says hello. Darth Revan says, sorry about the pain indicator and nice jacket, LOL. Did you shop in the lesbian pimp section? Actually, no, I got this at Sam's Club. It's very comfortable, and that's why I got it. And actually, Mrs. Anti-Trigger has one just like it. We got two of them. They're men's, but, you know, women can wear men's clothes and look good. Men can't wear women's clothes and look good, as we saw from Super Chat number 17. Yes. Luke, Professor McCoy says to Luke, your move, General. Mr. Miles says, thank you, but we'll see if I get it, LOL. You will, Mr. Miles, as long as you remind me. That's the only thing. I ask you to, I'm genuinely asking you to remind me. And because if I forget, it would be an honest thing, but I don't want to forget. Rock Solid says, remember people, smash the like button, share via social, set chat to live, turn mic and camera on before going live, donate if you can, join the Patreon, don't abuse emojis, and down with Turtistan. Not you see, Rock Solid, you messed that up. Just for that, I am not going to hold back on getting to 10K. In fact, we are getting dangerously close because thanks again to Mr. Miles, we've gotten a few new subscribers this morning. So as of this moment, we are at 9,894. We are 106 subscribers away from 10,000. So awesome there. Let's see. Luke says, Andrew, what are the priciest options in terms of super chats? I forgot. Well, the single most expensive super chat is the redneck chat, which is the horrible fake news story about that certain Englishman who we shall not mention. But that is the single most expensive. Professor says 1 million for some reason. And of course, you know, Luke, if you want any super chats, well, you're going to have Mr. Miles donate to me, because, you know, all that money went to Mr. Miles, so that didn't pay for super chats. See, I'm just kidding. They're not the best fit for the Borg. They're not old enough, unless you're saying that the creatures of TOS became the Borg in one generation and traveled back in time. Actually, first of all, how do you figure they're not old enough? when, as I demonstrated in the video, that Spock referred to ancient civilizations that archaeologists determined were in fact impacted by these creatures. They didn't give a year, but ancient doesn't generally mean, oh, a couple hundred years ago. And in fact, the next one he listed was from a couple hundred years ago. So how do you figure not old enough? In fact, because I covered that in the video, or were you not paying attention? John DeMarco says, greetings. Mrs. Anti-Tricker's waving at everybody. Professor McCoy says hello to Mrs. T. Josh is saying hi to Mrs. Anti-Tricker. Everybody loves Mrs. Anti-Tricker more than me. Tom says, why can't we just have Star Trek back? Shatner still lives. I feel you, Tom. I feel you. Valor says hi. I hope you and I hope your ex are doing well. Darth Ren says, Mrs. Anti-Tricker, hey, hope you're doing awesome today. Well, everybody just loves Mrs. Anti-Tricker. Phlox mentioned once in Enterprise how he met a species that swaps the prefrontal cortex in their newborns for some gimmick. I think he spoke about binars. Yeah, I think he was speaking about the binars there. Mr. Miles says, hey, don't forget to pay me that 100 or however much is left after YouTube takes their cut. I will, Mr. Miles, but you got to remind me a little closer to payday. Valor says, my ex wants me to pass along her thanks. Absolutely, and thank you. Mr. Miles says, Anti-Checker, you will be at 10,000 in the next few days. I have spoken. Tom McGraney says, my very first like. Well, Tom, thank you, my friend. Trek95 says, Mrs. Anti-Checker, how are you? Luke says, run that. I assume you mean the redneck chat. You got it, my friend.
And introducing Bearded Spock with his amazing dyslexia powers.
Good thing the wife doesn't realize I actually like STD. Well, what she doesn't know won't hurt her.
Oh, Dr. Alex, I just can't believe this. Michael actually likes Star Trek Discovery. I don't know what to do. I think I want to be with you.
Bridget, this is so unexpected. You want to run away with me? I don't know what to say. I'm a little concerned. I mean, Anti-Trekker is a bit bigger than me. I think he's at least 2 inches taller.
Actually, he's only 3 feet tall.
3 foot? I knew it. I knew that hatch was for him as a dwarf.
Actually, he's not a dwarf.
What?
He has big hairy feet. He's a hobbit.
And his feet are furry? He's a hobbit. Oh my god. He's just not to be trusted. Quick, run away with me, now that I know that I'm twice as tall. His little legs will never catch us.
Oh, yes. Yes. Let's run away together.
I hate you, Luke. I truly hate you. But the good news is we found out what happened after that. Whoops.
Oh, dear God, that blow to the head. That hurt. Oh, whoa. However, through the pain, STD suddenly doesn't seem quite so bad. Maybe I was wrong about Anti-Tracker after all.
Now Birdo Prey 5, I cannot order a mafia hit against the Anti-Trekker for you. Due to you asking for this, I will be reporting you to the local and federal authorities.
Son of a bitch! Son of a bitch!
Yeah, Because, you know, the evil dictator of Kuroga always has to get it in the end. By the way, since it's not in the chat because he did it through Streamlabs, Rock Solid donated $20 and says this is for Mr. Miles because he is awesome and anti-trekker is, well, anti-trekker. So, Mr. Miles, now you got to remind me not only of Luke's super chat, but of Rock Solid's as well. So that's 120 minus what Google and PayPal take from them. PayPal will be less than Google's because PayPal's nicer. But make sure that you remind me. And actually, I can probably do. I'll be able to send you the Rock Solid one tomorrow when we get paid because the Streamlabs donations go through instantaneously. Anyway, back to the chat we go. Great job on the Borg video, Anti-Trekker and Mr. Miles, says John DeMarco. Thank you, my friend. Yes, that was a true collaborative effort there. Mr. Miles helped me with the writing on it. I basically submitted a first draft. He threw back some good objections to my theory so that I could then adjust it and tweak it a little bit and make it a little bit better. And then, of course, he did a bang-up job with the edit. Miss Antriker is resting, which she doesn't generally get to do, so that's a good day for her. Absolutely. Mr. Miles, that last donation was for you. No, it wasn't, Rock Solid. I saw that. You said for me. I thought. Sharp Shire Eddie says, I subscribed not long ago since your theories are really interesting. Thank you, Eddie. I truly appreciate that. And these theory videos are actually a lot of fun to put together. And so they take a little bit more work than regular old YouTube videos, but I think they're worth it. And so me and Mr. Miles have been talking about doing more of that. But, you know, obviously we can't put out a video every day like that. So we'll probably do something like one of those videos once a week and then more standard videos scattered throughout the rest of the week. Darth Maul says, my theory is that the Borg were created by a bad robot through the Klutzman in a secret hideout. That's horrible. Yosef says, Mrs. Antriker hugs and kisses. Darth Hearn says, I think the Borg assimilated the Queen's race. Maybe she was powerful monarch, so the Borg made her Queen of the Borg, and then her original died, so they made copies of her in a robot body. Darth Revan, we will be getting into that in a future video, as far as exactly where I think that the Queen came from. But keep in mind, when I do one of these theory videos, and this is something that I try to do, is there are a million possible solutions to, say, the origin of the Borg or the origin of the Queen or any of that. But I specifically look for things that you can find in canon of Trek, clues within Trek to solve it, rather than just come up with something new, like, oh, some super race did this, or, you know, some alien did that. Because, yeah, you could say that about just about anything. But if you can find something in canon, I think that makes it more interesting. For example, with the origin of the Borg, using something like the Binars or the brain cell creatures, I think is more interesting than saying that there was some other race that we hadn't seen before that were the origin of the Borg. Let's see. And no, I will not make you suffer, Mr. Miles. I'm just going to make you work. Miss Antriker says, tied to Trek 95. Al Bundy says, new on IMDb, JJ Trek movie in development. Yes, although it's not going to have JJ involved. I can't remember the name of the director now. Quite frankly, it's a big yawn fest to me at this point. I don't particularly get excited about the Kelvin timeline. I actually enjoyed Star Trek 2009. I actually liked Star Trek Into Darkness. I hate with a passion Star Trek Beyond. And I quite frankly do not care if they make any more Kelvin timeline movies or not. Mr. Miles says, when will Mrs. Antriker just take over the show? I'm trying to convince her. I keep telling her we'll get to 1 million subs overnight if she would, but she just won't do it. Roxal says, I'm wondering if when Antriker will mention that donation. I already did. So suck on that, Rock Solid. Alexander is in the house, says, Asian Muslim wife born in the USSR is the best choice. She certainly is the best choice for you, Alexander. Oh, and by the way, I did see earlier Mr. Miles mentioned that that I needed to update the credits. The credits are not updated yet, Alexander, because I know you were going to ask about that because you've asked about it a couple of times. I'm going to try to get the credits updated today. It's been a little bit hectic for me dealing with the pain and the doctors and the bureaucracies at work and stuff. So I apologize for not having it done yet, but I'm gonna. I don't have anything else on my plate between now and Midnight's Edge tonight. And Luke throws another 100 euros in there. Thank you so much, Luke. It says, only problem with your theory is it sets up Borg origin in the Alpha Quadrant. This is inconsistent with all canonical encounters made with the Borg so far. Of those creatures assimilated this many Alpha Quadrant civilizations, why no ships or strongholds there? But you did not, in that case, you might have missed it, Luke, because it was one line in the theory. I did say that the brain parasite creature, and by the way, thank you so much for your generosity, Luke. I truly appreciate it. But the brain parasite creatures, I said that Kirk encountered one creature. Remember, these cells make up a single living organism that the Enterprise, the Constitution class Enterprise encountered one at Den of 4 and destroyed said brain creature. My suggestion is that another brain creature of the same species encountered a technologically advanced race, and I specifically said in the vicinity of the Delta Quadrant. And that's where they got started as the Borg. The brain creature that Kirk impacted was killed by Kirk. So that one didn't become the Borg. It was another member of the same species that was on the other side of the galaxy. And Sci-Fi says, now, Antrigger, happy wife, happy life. Absolutely, I believe in that. But Mrs. Antrigger doesn't want to take over the show. That's the problem. Whoa, where's the feather boa to go with it? What is with you guys? Jeez. And Alexander's throwing some roses at Mrs. Anti-Trekker. Trek95 said, Mrs. Anti-Trekker, I'm good, thanks. How did Anti-Trekker get you? I stalked her. That is a fact. Professor McCoy says, I'm drinking coffee and eating pigs in a blanket while watching Anti-Trekker. Those poor pigs. Josh says, Antrigger, yes, we like Mrs. Antrigger more than you. You would have to have her on more. I try to, but you know, she's kind of shy. Mr. Ross says, after I finished the video, I got to catch up on The Mandalorian. I hope they don't botch this because I love it so far. The Mandalorian, I'll say that, and you know, I disagree with you a little bit on The Mandalorian, Mr. Ross. I think that the first, and Rock's up, it's another 20 bucks, says, this is for Mrs. Anti-Trekker for having to deal with Anti-Trekker because quantum. Wow, you guys just hate me today. But thank you. I'm sure Mrs. Anti-Trekker will put the $20 to good use. But thank you, Rock Solid. Jerk. Anyway, so The Mandalorian, I didn't like the fact that there was no character development in episode 1, but I actually really enjoyed episode 2. And I think that the series itself could be solid if they don't screw it up, like you said. So unfortunately, we just have to give it time to see if they manage to screw this up. I hope they don't. Darth Maul says, kidding aside, I enjoyed your theory, but I prefer the V'ger theory. Keeps the Borg mysterious and threatening. Yeah, but you know, like I said, the V'ger theory doesn't make a lot of sense. Because the V'ger theory, as presented in Star Trek Legacy, is that the Borg were created to explore the galaxy and find the Creator, but V'ger knew where the Creator was all along. And that was stated in the movie. Darren says, does Dr. Alex really have one blue eye, one brown eye? No. That was actually, Joshua didn't know what color Dr. Alex's eyes were, so he just decided to do that. Darth Revan says, I'm sure you, Mrs. Anti-Trekker, will agree there's nothing you can do in this world or in the next your wife will not find out about. That is true. Darth Revan is laughing. Thomas says, long live the king of Turkestan, King Alex. Hey! That's blasphemy right there. Track 95 is read my reply to the video. I assume it's in the comments. I will look for it. And Marvel X42 says, meow. Welcome, Marvel X42. I assume you're new. I have not seen you around before, so welcome to the show, my friend. Let's see. And I'm just going to be reading the stuff addressed directly to me because I am falling behind in the chat. So remember, guys, if you want me to read it, make sure you put @Anti-Trekker in there, and there does need to be the dash, or else it will not highlight on my system. Yost says, confirm Mrs. Anti-Trekker is a Jedi. She can fly in space. True. Mr. Bob says, Anti-Trekker, wow, I just realized there's a Star Wars show airing that I like, but no Star Trek show airing that I like. Here's hoping for Picard to be a pleasant surprise to you. You know what, Mr. Miles? I know a lot of people have written off Picard as it's going to be total garbage. I haven't written it off. I'm not. And Trek 95 puts a couple of bucks in, says, for Joshua and all his hard work. Thank you, Trek 95. And I know Joshua will appreciate that. Boy, nobody wants to give me money. What about, why didn't anybody give Auntie some money? She's sitting there chewing on her bone. Somebody's got to give some money to the Bone Fund. Anyway, but you're right. You know, I think that Picard has the potential to be good. So I'm not going to write it off as being garbage before I see it. That being said, the track record of the people that are producing it, not a great track record, but I'm hoping that the Picard show is good. Is Shatner too old for Star Trek? No. In fact, Shatner is actually, I believe, younger than Patrick Stewart. But even I don't think he's interested in coming out of retirement, to be honest with you. And even if he was, I don't think he'd want to work in the current political climate. And Mr. Ross says, Andrew, yes, I think that we're both bringing an A game. We can still do better, but we're on the right track now. Agreed, Mr. Miles. And so I can't wait for the next couple of videos that we work on together. Now, I want everybody to know this because I don't want anybody to go, what the heck happened to the channel? There will probably not be a Mr. Miles produced video next week because of Thanksgiving. Mr. Miles, and this is not a slight against Mr. Miles, Mr. Miles has big plans for Thanksgiving and is going to take a lot of his time, so he won't be able to spend a lot of time editing. He'll do a little bit of work, but probably won't get a video done. And Rock Solid puts $2 in for the Bone Fund. Well, there you go, Andrew. At least you got and so the... man, you guys are jerks. And Professor McCoy puts $5 in. Thank you. Says, "Sigh, Jerry released the beast. Sorry, old chap, but seems that the crew of Discovery is attempting to breach my laboratory. So goodbye for now." Take care of yourself, Professor McCoy. And thank you, my friend. I truly appreciate the $5. Every little bit helps the channel. It truly does. Whether you're giving it to me, Mrs. Sandtrekker, or yes, even Mr. Miles, it all goes to help the channel. So thank you guys. But back to what I was saying. So Mr. Miles is going to be, taking a little bit of time off for Thanksgiving. Then after Thanksgiving, once December rolls around, me and Mr. Miles are going to be working on focusing the channel so that we have like a heavy release that's a heavy Mr. Miles edit thing like you saw with the Borg video, and then spaced with a couple of, I'll just say, not overly produced videos, right? So just stuff about me talking about this or that or whatever. But the big videos, the lore type videos or the hypothetical battle type videos, those we're going to try to get out weekly. And so, which I think those are going to drive the channel. So I think that it's a winning formula if you look at the way that the last two videos performed so far. Now, the current one I haven't checked in a little while, but it was, in fact, doing very, very well. Let's see if I can remember. Man, I'm like losing my mind. We'll go to my channel and videos, and so as of right now, yeah, we're at about 1,500 on that one, which is, for considering the video was released just a matter of a few hours ago, is pretty darn good for me. I know that some people that have huge channels will say, "Oh well, Mal, this video was a failure. It only got 45,000 views and crap like that." Me, getting 2,000 views on the first day is a minor miracle, so that's awesome. Anyway, Darth Revan says, "The day Shatner passes on, it will be a dark day for nerddom. Only two big nerd heroes we left after him, McKellen and Stewart." And Muhammad O'Prey donated $2 for the Christ Experience Church. Thank you, Muhammad O'Prey. Wow, that's a different one. And Joseph puts in $1 for Auntie. Well, there you go, Auntie. I got it. She doesn't care. She's chewing on the bone that I gave her just before the show. And see, and don't say I'm not nice to my dog. Look at that big old ham bone she's chewing on. She's got a bowl of food there, and she's not even touching it because she wants that ham bone. Anyway, I agree. When William Shatner passes, it will definitely be a day of mourning here at this channel for sure. I love William Shatner. I met the man once, and he was the kindest celebrity. I was really blown away because of his reputation to be a jerk. He was so kind to me that it makes me tear up when I think about it. So yes, when that day comes, it will truly be a sad, sad day for me. And let's see, Alexander says, "And the theory about the MCU Aunt May jeans." Well, I'm still working on that one, Alexander. That's one. I think I'm going to have that one ready for you in April, right around April 1st. Eric Draven says, Antrigger, looking forward to your Borg Queen video. Thank you. That was going to be a big one. Mr. Miles is going to have to put some work into that one. But yes, we do have, I am working on a theory, Mr. Miles, so I bounced a couple of ideas off each other already about the Borg Queen. And I think that we're on the same page with that one. Tiki says, a flannel 70s pimp hat would help complete your outfit today. All right, that's it. That's it. Hold on. Jerks.
Sir, we are being hailed.
On screen. What is your problem?
I am Lore.
Do you need help?
I have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Lore Reloaded.
Let me guess, their rubber band broke, right?
I make YouTube go.
There, fine. I took off the coat. Jeez. Bunch of jerks around here. Sharpshire Eddie says, Intro, my question is, what do you think about the Picard series? Is it going to be in the Prime timeline or some others, since there's so many timeline changes over the time of Trek? That's a good question. As you know, we haven't gotten anything definitive. However, the only thing we really have as a clue is that they do show the classic Galaxy-class starship in the as a hologram in Starfleet Command. So based on that, I'm going to assume that it is supposed to be set in the Prime timeline. And interestingly enough, unlike what we've seen on Discovery, it actually looked like the Galaxy-class ship from Star Trek The Next Generation. It didn't look like some altered version, like some Kurtzmanized version of the Galaxy-class. And that's one reason I actually hold hope for the Picard series, because it doesn't look like they screwed with it. And so, whereas, when they showed the Enterprise in Star Trek Discovery, it's like, why did you have to change the Enterprise? Let's see. Roxanne says, thank you, Trek 95. That was actually PP review I had paid out from another source, so passing along to Mr. Miles, not anti-trigger. I hate you all. Thomas says, hey, Trigger, the Queen is a member of species 125. She said it. Yes, but that's not the point of it. It's not what species she is. It's more about where did that come into play? How did that happen? Alexander says, I think the Borg has been created by the Baku. That doesn't make sense. Sci-Fi Nation says, Bird of Prey 5, we need to take Antricker into custody and charge him under Kurogan's Sedation Act for calling you an evil dictator. Hail Kuroga. Except that, no, that's not going to happen. Roxas, so your argument, Antricker, is that the brain cell creatures in the TOS episode was only part of a species from the Borg. If so, why were they just brain cells in TOS? No, I'm saying that the brain cell creature was, think about it this way. It's kind of hard to explain in simple terms, but it was just one creature, right? In fact, they say it in the episode where Spock discusses that it's a singular brain cell, and Kirk gets the implication that this is one cell in a larger creature, an incredibly huge creature. However, the thing that they don't talk about is that, at least to the best of my knowledge, there's no species of animal that exists in isolation. Like, there's no species where there's only one of them, right? Auntie is a beagle. There are millions of beagles, right? I'm a human. There are billions of humans, etc. There have got to be other brain creatures around the universe. That's just one of them. They also postulate that the brain creature probably came from another galaxy. So there's another cluster of brain cells floating around somewhere. And there's probably thousands, if not millions of them floating around the universe. And this other one happened to hit the Delta Quadrant, and that's where, and it became the Borg. Does that make it a little more clear? I hope. Trek 95 says to Mrs. Antrigger, you stalked him. No, I stalked her. Greetings, anti-drinker and fellow nerd, says Stromer. Hey, my friend, how you doing? And let's see. Mike Richard says, Antrigger, try to spell your church's name correctly this time. I will try. I do suck at that kind of thing. Joseph says, we totally need to at least a short video with you explaining why you hate so much Beyond, because it's praised as the most Trek of the Kelvin movies. I know, and that bugs me. The more that people say that, the more it bugs me, because it is not the most, well, there are some things they do that are Trek-isms, but there are also some things they do that really piss me off. What they do is they take what, in my opinion, are some of the worst aspects of Trek and push it in that movie. Like the whole idea that the Federation or that Starfleet is not the military, right? They say that in Star Trek Into Darkness, which pisses me off there, but then they double down on it by making that the central theme of the plot in Star Trek Beyond. And I'm sorry, I hate to burst everybody's freaking bubble, but Starfleet is the military of the Federation. End of discussion. Mr. Miles says, actually, I'm good at being first. I'm pre-first. Yes, pre-first. Beat that, Thomas. Ooh, that's a good one. Luke says, so basically it's from the story of the Gau'uts. I can see where this is coming from. Not sure what you're talking about. Ms. Antrigger, what do you think about the MCU at May Jeans? I don't know if she's listening. Whew. Darth Revan says, Mrs. Antrigger has Stockholm Syndrome. As soon as they find a cure, she's leaving and taking Auntie. Wow. Darren says, Mrs. Antrigger strikes me as more demure than shy. Well, you're probably right. Quantum Jerk, yes. I want the rest of the stream to be nothing but Super Chat number 17. All right, you got it. We're just done. I'm not going to talk anymore.
So what can I do? I really beg you, my lord. Tell me flirting is just like a sport. Anything fly, it's all good. Let me jump in the Jeep and send in the trumpet. I love men. A little bit of Kirk in my, a little bit of Scotty on the, but a little bit of Sulu's what I see. A little bit of Chekhov in. I love men in the whatever.
All right, I think that's about as enough as you guys can take. Miss Andrew, I think you should be on not sure on somewhat, antipsychotic drugs. You have a rich audience, and me, anti-trigger. Yeah. Alexander says, I think the Dominion has been created by the Tribbles. That's an interesting idea, Alexander. You should do a video on that. Mr. Ross says, actually, don't just care about the style of how they're revealing his character. That doesn't make it bad in any sense, just a style. You just don't care for the style of how they're revealing his character. That doesn't make it bad. It's just a stylistic choice. I disagree. It's not a matter of style is one thing, but they have no character development. At the end of the first episode, unless you already know the lore of the Mandalorians, unless you already know everything there is to know about the Star Wars universe, you have nothing to grasp onto. There is no reason to give a crap about anybody in that episode. That's the problem. There are no heroes, there are no villains. They're just people doing their jobs. If anything, you would probably think that the Mandalorian is a dick because that stupid blue guy that should have been on the Orville at the beginning of it was probably the nicest guy we saw in the whole episode. And there is Trek 95's $2. Thank you again, my friend. I do appreciate it. I know Joshua will. Mr. Mouse says, entry, the long arc character development is a common in anime. That might be why it doesn't bother me. Perhaps, but you know what? Even in anime, they usually give you a few hints as to what the character is in the beginning. They may not give you the whole thing. They may not tell you their backstory or whatever. But the problem is that in the Mandalorian himself has zero personality. He talks like he's imitating Boba Fett. He has no inflection, no emotion whatsoever. He's just doing his job. And at the end of the episode, even at the end of the second episode, is he protecting Baby Yoda because he actually cares about Baby Yoda? Or is he just protecting Baby Yoda so he can get the stupid metal to make his armor out of? Don't know. Darth Vader says, but the Vidian, I believe, in Voyager who were frozen for 2,000 years. They said they were an annoyance back then. I'm not sure what your point is. If you're saying that the Borg are at least 2,000 years old, then that still doesn't have a problem with my theory. Sharpshire Eddie says, my question is, what do you think about Picard series? Is it going to be prime time like some other? I already answered that. I think you've just you don't have to repeat the questions if you put my name in it. It's just that sometimes I fall behind in the chat. Sci-Fi Nation says, free Auntie. I don't think Auntie wants to be freed right now. She is busy working on that bone. George Peter Gaston, I think you're new, but welcome. Says, silly super chat, we should all organize and watch A New Hope on the day episode 9 comes out. That's not a bad idea. Darren says, how do I send your fish money without sending you money? Send it through the water? And there's Roxal's $2 for the bone fun. Thank you, my friend. George Peter says, did you get my digital link to download my comic for review? I haven't actually used it yet, so I will. Professor McCoy there says $5 about Jerry released the beast. Poor Professor McCoy. I don't have $2, jerk. That's all right. Roxal says number 17 on Uber Loop Monkey Dance. Oh man, that would be painful. Make sure all your donations go to anyone but Anti-Tricker. And yes, I am a jerk. Yes, you certainly are. Thomas says, must be nice not to work on Thanksgiving. I wish I didn't. Yeah. Patrick Stewart is 79. And William Shatner's 88. Really? Is William Shatner older than Patrick Stewart? I thought Patrick Stewart was a little older for some reason, but I must be wrong. I think the Klingons have been created by Jar Jar Binks. How in the world would Jar Jar Binks have created the Klingons, Alexander? That doesn't there's no logic to that whatsoever. Granted, I know it's coming from you, and you are insane, but I'm curious as to where you got that. Uncle Rima says, did you watch the new Call of the Wild trailer with Harrison Ford? Looks pretty good. Maybe there's still hope for Indy 5, but Disney better hurry up before it's impossible for Ford to do. I don't want to see Indy 5. Indy 4 sucked. All right, so, and I'm sorry. I love Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford is a great actor, but he is too damn old to play Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. He just is. If you're going to make another Indiana Jones movie, you got to recast him. And Rock Solid puts another $2 in, says, fine, here's for Anti-Tricker, now unsub to him. Hey. Such a jerk, Rock Solid, but I love you anyway. Trek 95 thinks Jar Jar Binks is the secret Skywalker. That's bad enough to actually happen. Your videos are all out weekly. I'll show myself out. Frank and Freddie had coitus, and Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. All right. Oh, goodness. Darth Vader says, look at Auntie and repeat this. You're a good girl. Yes, you're the bestest little fluffer this channel. Who's a good girl? Kisses, noises, ×3. Why? Auntie's my buddy here. Right, Auntie? You're my buddy. Aren't you? Yeah, you're my buddy. So I wonder if you'll be able to see Patrick Stewart's diapers under his uniform. Oh, that's horrible. But an interesting question. Darth Raven says, an editor supreme donated $1 and calls me a hoot Herbert. I hate you, Miles. Darth Raven misses the pimp coat. Well, everybody was making fun of the pimp coat, so I'm not wearing it. Roxal says, pimping ain't easy. Everyone's got a hoe train. Darren says, I actually think you look better with the coat on. Let's see. And Luke says, play the latest mega chat on the list. Well, the latest mega chat on the list would be this one.
Spinning Spock has space dyslexia. Next on Six Ad World.
Laura, this sucks. Let's go get some money. Hi. I'm Feces. This is Lorehead. Can we have some money?
Feces? Loreface? What kind of names are those?
My name is Lorehead, sir. Lorehead. Like, my head is full of lore. Get it?
Yeah. And I'm Feces. Like poop.
Anyway, boys, I sure could use a hand from a couple of strong young lads.
Okay.
You see, I've been stuck in this dang old hospital bed for nigh about a decade now, and I can't adjust it quite right. Can you boys reach that lever under the bed?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Just give it a nice hard yank.
Who said yank?
Yeah.
Hey, baby, come to Lorehead.
Lore, what are you doing with that lever? Come on, man, I want to turn.
Son of a bitch! You stupid kids, you don't ever listen. What the hell am I supposed to do now?
I don't know.
Damn it.
There you go, Luke. Feces and Lorehead. Uncle Remus calling me Huggy Bear. Roxall says, is it already rocking... Anti-Checker is already rocking the pimp cane. The velour hat and the jacket isn't far away. Darth Vader says, dude, don't go cold because of us. I'm fine. You guys are just jerks. And Darren says, Depeche Mode, damn, you're old. Yes, I actually saw Depeche Mode in concert twice. Me and Mrs. Anti-Checker went to see Music for the Masses. And then we also went to see them, 2 years ago. So, yeah. Schromer says, you and Mr. Miles deserve to reach 10,000, not far off, and I believe you will reach 20K far sooner than you think, to greater success, my friend. Thank you, Schromer. I truly appreciate that, and I absolutely agree that we deserve it. No, I think that if we continue the hard work, I think that we could make this channel very successful indeed, and so, yes. And Mr. Miles saying this channel will hit 10K in 2 days or less. I don't know if we'll do it that quickly, but I do hope we hit it soon. And then Mr. Miles says, I have spoken. I think we should have the new YouTube rules for the new guys in the description for the future, and then say, hey, new guys, check in the description. As far as, don't say things like, please read my last comment. If you want to make sure that I read it, you want to put @Anti-Trekker in the chat, that's not a bad idea. I may have to do that. Let's see. Brain cell species hijacked other species that they use to construct the board. Yes, that is a very abbreviated version of what I'm saying. Cold fusion waffles. I don't think I've seen you before, so if you're welcome, or if you're new, welcome. Not if you're welcome new. Says, looking forward to the Borg Queen video, and if you think the Queen is a single entity or a gestalt entity made of all females of her species. Ah, yes. There are a few interesting ideas on the Queen, and we're going to delve into a couple of them. Jace M. Outdoor says, what do you think the baby on The Mandalorian is a love child between Yoda and Yaddle? Do you think the baby on The Mandalorian is a love child between Yoda and Yaddle? Not necessarily, but I would not be surprised if it was somehow related to Yoda. But I think that, that's kind of silly, because there's no evidence that Yoda ever had kids. The obvious creators of the Borg were the Packlids. I can't believe I'm the only one who sees the obvious correlation. Oh, wait. The Packlids are the ones that look like Lore. Never mind. Yes. Let's see. Tom McGreen says, what am I missing? What brain creature in TOS? Well, if you haven't seen it, Tom, I released a video just about 7 hours ago called the origin of the Borg theory, and so you can check it out on my channel. And I basically posit that the brain creatures from TOS are in fact the origin of the Borg. But Antrigger, there's only one evil bird of prey, 5 of Kuroga, and Lore and Drag. Well, okay. Roxanne says, your brain cell Borg theory holds less water than those claiming that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Well, first of all, I don't know why you're obsessed with Jeffrey Epstein, but as far let's stop talking about that, Roxanne. I don't want to get in trouble for talking about that all the time. As far as the Borg theory, why it holds less water, I don't know. What's your if you want to argue that it's a bad theory, I'm fine with that, but you got to tell me why. Just saying it sucked isn't an argument. That's just you being contrarian. Miss Antrigger, clap twice if you want me to send the cops. Oh, stop. Sharpshire says, Antrigger, I mean, if Picard and the crew was in the past and be a part of the warp flight, it's possible that they kind of changed the future in the Prime timeline since the Borg were in Enterprise. Yes. Actually, Sharpshire, if you're new to the channel, go back to a prior video. I just put it out a couple of weeks ago. It's called the Triple Timeline Theory, and that gets into exactly what you're talking about there. I think you'll enjoy that video. So let's see. Rock Solid said, but you married him, Mrs. Antricker. He didn't have a choice. You did. So clearly you're the one with bad judgment. Wow. Wow. Nicole's saying hi to Mrs. Antricker. Mrs. Antricker, of course, but I just wanted to say because that would not make sense. Okay. Mr. Ron says, Antricker, the Gawaud reference was because it's an alien that uses humans and others for their form to handle tools better and so on. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I get it. The difference is that the brain parasites control them remotely, as opposed to the Gawaud actually live inside the host. Let's see. What do you think about the news that looks like we're going to get a new Trek movie with Chris Pine? Quite frankly, yeah, wake me up when they make the movie and I'll let you know. Rock Solid says, this is amazing. Okay. Alexander says, I hope Jar Jar Binks will be in The Mandalorian. I doubt it. Tom says, the Antricker is a jerk, but I can't look away. That's... thanks, I guess. Aberjam is in the house. Says, Antricker, greetings, brother. Great Borg video. I think your theory is a perfect fit. Thank you, Aberjam. I truly appreciate it. I love the theory myself. Let's see. Sharpshire says, sorry if I read it twice when I wanted to delete my second time. It was really fall behind. That's no worries, man. It's okay. But yeah, just know when, and because I know for those of you that are newer to the channel, when I go through the chat, I'm not like, I don't have a topic that I just talk about or something and only read super chats like most channels. What I do is when I start reading the chat, I read the chat until I get caught up, and that's when I wrap up the show. However, if I start falling behind, which I almost always do, I only read the chats to say @AntiTrekker. So as long as you put @AntiTrekker in the chat, I will read it. It just may take a little while. Like right now, I'm reading Darth Maul's chat from 11:59, and it is now 12:09, so I'm about 10 minutes behind. Which, speaking of which, Darth Maul says, I know nothing about Star Wars other than the movies. Mandalorian is intriguing because I don't know his motivations, but the crazy crap that happens on his missions is my draw. Okay. Mr. Ross says, that's part of the appeal of the character. We don't know why he's doing it. That's one of the hooks. It makes me want to watch the next episode. Not for me. I want to have a character. Here's the problem, Mr. Miles, and this is just a fundamental difference between the way we look at entertainment. I want a character I can identify with. I want a character that I can root for. I want a character that I can care about. And if we know nothing about the character, then how can I care? Let's see. Just saying. So Auntie wants to go downstairs, so I was just letting Mrs. Anti-Trekker to please have Joshua come up and get her. Where can we have a watch party for Star Wars, not Episode 9? Well, reach out to people in your local community, and we should, and because I don't know where you are. And Phil Demon just subscribed to the channel. I don't know if you're here or not. If you're not here, well, then thanks anyway. But if you are here, thank you. And now you know. And so refreshing the old counter, we are now up to 9,895 subscribers. We are 105 away from 10,000. Suck on that, rock solid. Let's see. Schromer says, Mr. Miles, you and Anti-Trekker both deserve every success, even if he does beat you without mercy. Thank you. And I do truly enjoy beating without mercy. All right, so I'm going to put a super chat on for just a couple of minutes so that Joshua can get Auntie out. So here we go. Enjoy some wonderful singing and dancing.
I may have a It's not clean. Repeat, I do not have a clean Take the bloody
you go. So congratulations, y'all got to watch Lore dance naked. Alexander says, I think the Romulans have been created by the Victorian baboon woman. That's an interesting idea, Alexander. I heard people calling for Brie Larson to play a Jedi in Indiana. Yeah, I get where you're going with that, Darth Revan. No, I've heard that too. But first of all, if Brie Larson were to, I know people have said, oh, she should play Ahsoka. First of all, no, she shouldn't, because she doesn't look anything like Ahsoka. The only thing she has in common with Ahsoka, now I've only seen the first season and a little bit of season 2 of Clone Wars. So to me, the only thing Brie Larson has in common with Ahsoka is they're both very annoying. However, I understand Ahsoka becomes a more interesting character as time goes on. Brie Larson needs to just shut up and get out of nerd culture because she, no thank you. And as far as her being a female version of Indiana Jones, that will just be another huge flop if they actually tried to do a gender swap version of Indiana Jones. That would be like, I'd say go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it just so that Paramount can lose their shirts on it, and hopefully people will get it through their freaking heads that simply swapping genders is not a clever way of storytelling. Tom says, Kirk rules, I agree. Sharpshire says, you tried out Star Trek Online, and if so, do you think it has any connection to the actual Star Trek canon series and movies? I have played Star Trek Online. In fact, I was I beta tested Star Trek Online. And Night Breeze puts in a buck, says, jerky for Auntie and Death of Disco. Auntie just went downstairs, so I'll give her some jerky later, but I will put on Death of Disco for you right now. All right, so where was I? Okay, so back to what Sharpshire was asking. So as far as canon is concerned and Star Trek Online, so like I said, I was actually a beta tester for Star Trek Online. I was a lifetime member of Star Trek Online when it launched. I hardly ever play it though, because while I love the starship combat, I think the ground combat sucks in the game. As far as canonicalism of the game, no. I don't think that it's really nothing. I mean, it takes place after the last adventures of Star Trek, after the destruction of Romulus and all that. So, they did that on purpose so that it would be outside of typical Trek canon, and they would simply refer to events in Trek as history. But no, I don't buy that it's canonical at all. I know some people argue that it is, but quite frankly, no. There are things in it that are directly contradictory to established canon, like some of the stuff with the Doomsday Machine and other stuff. So, but it's just a game. Alexander says, I think the Baku had been created by MCU Aunt May Naked. Wow. Shatner could be a Kirk head in a jar and I'd watch it. I would too. I absolutely would. Gotta love Lore face. Yeah. Lore sounds so dead inside. He really does. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Yeah. That's horrible voice acting. Make Anti-Trigger great again. Thanks, I guess. Rock Solid says, make Anti-Trigger rock solid again. I think V'ger had been created by Naked Georgiou. No, V'ger was created by NASA. That's actually, we know that one pretty solid. I also mean German leader of the 1940s and Grape and other such. Okay. I'm not sure what you're saying there. Are you talking about in addition to Trump? Darren says, your husband didn't read my whole comment. I said I listened to them and enjoyed Depeche Mode too. I know you said that, but you're just, but you see, you say, oh, you're so old, and then you get mad at me for not reading your whole comment. Nightbreeze says, hi, Tricker and everyone. Hey, Nightbreeze. Alexander says, 7 of 9 is the queen of Star Trek. Well, she is definitely the hottest of Star Trek. They'll probably reveal that Yoda was a horn dog who dropped litters of kids in every corner of the universe. Thank you for ruining Star Wars even more. Alexander says, I'm obsessed by MCU at Me Naked. That we can agree on. Let's see. Jay says, I think CBS should admit that Star Trek Discovery takes place in the JJ Trek, not in the original timeline. The thing is that it still wouldn't explain the technological differences. And that's actually a big problem with Star Trek 2009. Is that the Kelvin itself, which was the dividing point, that's why the JJ films are considered the Kelvin timeline. The technology on the Kelvin itself had the display windows and all that stuff that we never saw in Trek before. However, we do see that in Star Trek Discovery. So, Jace, if you haven't seen it, check out my triple timeline theory, because I do think I explained why Star Trek Discovery and the Kelvin timeline have very similar technology. Darren says, I don't understand why people have such problems with your Trek ideas. They're definitely your ideas. Yeah, and I say that in the videos. They're just my ideas. I know some people get really upset at me for coming up with ideas, but that's okay. I don't mind having the debate as long as you're reasonable about it. I know people that say, and by the way, an argument against a fan theory of Trek is not, it's just a TV show. All that tells me is that you're not a fan. And that's fine. So, yeah. Alexander says, what is the triple trilogy in Lone Ranger? Well, as far as I know, there isn't one. Galadorn says, I'm afraid Baby Yoda will be written as the Force reincarnation, which is why because Dave Filoni and his Wills of the Force story arc that George wants to add. Well, except that George has no say, but we'll see. Nicole says, you know who did not do what they said? You know who did not do what they said that he did? I'm not sure what you mean there. Sharpchild says, I watched the triple timeline videos and it was so freaking awesome. I definitely loved it. Thank you. Auntie is active today. Yes, well, and that's why she wanted to go downstairs, so unfortunately she is now downstairs. And yes, I am very far behind. I gotta get caught up. Jar Jar died as a clown on Naboo. It's canon. Okay. And Nightbreeze sign of Mrs. Ant Tricker, who is left. Ant Tricker, the brain creatures weren't old enough. They weren't in the Delta Quadrant. I think you could see coincidences as fact. People are likelier to believe that which they want to believe. Okay, rock solid. I addressed both of those in the video. They clearly state that they are old enough in Trek canon. As far as them being in the Delta Quadrant, that's my supposition, is that there was another one of those creatures in the Delta Quadrant. Why is that so far-fetched? They traveled all around the Alpha Quadrant, according to Spock. Why couldn't one of them be in the Delta Quadrant? I don't understand why this is like so difficult for you. I understand you hate the original series, but I still don't understand why that's a sticking point for you. As far as them not being old enough, they clearly state in the episode that they have been this particular brain cell creature that Kirk fought has been around for a very long time. They don't give a specific time frame, but they say these ancient civilizations that archaeologists determined were involved with these brain cell creature attacks. Trek 95 says, hey, Trek is a good man. I like the tease. Hey, that's all right. We're all part of the same nerd community. I actually don't mind that the new JJ Enterprise that debuted at the end of the Beyond. I heard that Scott Bakula will also be in the film. That'd be neat if true. Okay. Did you turn off Joshua's 3D animation of Auntie? That's not a 3D animation. Auntie wanted to go downstairs. Schromer says, I like your Borg theory. Do you think that there are other brain cell Borg-style collectives? Not necessarily cyborg, but possibly these creatures from Season 1 TNG Conspiracy. Well, the Bluegills from TNG Conspiracy, I want to see them come back. I would love to see them be part of the Picard series. Because they're a little different in that they, they actually attach themselves and they're direct parasites, as opposed to the brain cells kind of control people from remote control, which is why I think of them more like the Borg collective. Because the bluegills didn't have a collective consciousness. They just individually would take over. But I think they were interesting, and I'd like to see them come back. I think the Starfleet was created by Tonto. I kind of doubt that one. Rocksolid says, I also think you romanticize TOS and would love the Borg to have a TOS tie-on. On the flip side, I dislike TOS, so I would rather dismiss it. We both have biases, you for, me against. Well, like I said, I considered the binars, but I don't think the binars line up quite right. And I think my video demonstrates that the TOS brain cell parasites are the closest fit to a natural state Borg that we have seen. Truck 95 says, you are never as far behind as Bird of Prey 5. That's true. Can you settle something for me? In the first Star Wars prequel to The Phantom Menace, who are we actually supposed to root for? Honestly, you're supposed to root for Anakin. That's who you're supposed to root for. Anakin, the problem is that he's annoying. Nicole correctly points out without TOS there would be no others. That's correct. I don't know why Rock Solid hates TOS so much, especially considering he's a retro gamer, but whatever. Why CBS don't admit the truth that Star Trek just face to the J? I already read that. I assume you repeated it. Rock Solid says, I understand Nicole and I actually like the... Let's see. I understand that, Nicole, and I actually like the TOS movies, but I can't stand the TV show. It's terrible. The only thing worse is Disco for me. I'd rather watch Janeway. Yeah, I don't know why you hate it so much. It's better written than a lot of the rest of Trek. But whatever. I propose we raid Nerdrotic's next stream and steal 195 subs. He can afford to lose a few. Absolutely. You go do that. Did you hear what Bird of Prey 5 did on his stream? Well, not specifically, but he does all sorts of zany antics on his streams, that's for sure. Mr. Miles, it's an interesting take, but I think Antricker is hoping for TOS connection more than anything else. No, I just tried to find the best fit. That's all it is, Rock Solid. I don't know, understand why you think that, granted, yes, it's a TOS tie-in. Yes, TOS is my favorite. However, the reason I chose that particular species is because they're a perfect freaking fit, not because they're from TOS. Why is that so hard for you? Anyway, I understand that and Mr. Miles is not a huge TOS fan, so it's not like I don't have anybody that helps me think through some of this stuff. Admiral Saval's in the house. How you doing, Admiral? There's Mrs. Antricker saying she's taken off. Yosef says, if you played Lore 007 before every stream, you would not need to be afraid to mark your streams as not child-friendly. That's true. Alexander says, I heard then Jerry Ryan will play MCU Aunt May naked in the next Star Wars. I have not heard that. Darth Vader says Ahsoka is really good in Rebels. Well, I haven't gotten to Rebels, so yeah. And Yosef, I like that, says there's a female version of Indiana Jones, Laura effing Croft. You're right. Aberjam says, if they did recast Indiana Jones, who would you pick? No cop-outs. I'm holding your lunch to ransom. Chris Pratt is who I would cast as Indiana Jones. Can we play to Star Trek Underline? I'm not sure if you mean Star Trek Online. You can play it all you want. I'm not going to play it anymore because I find the game boring. Honestly, I've tried getting into it a few times and I just find the game boring. The starship combat is cool, but it just becomes a repetitive grind, and you can't really level up without doing ground missions, and I hate doing the ground missions. Darth Maul says, your thoughts on why they're shopping around Brie Larson to other franchises? Because they're desperate to make her a thing, and I don't understand that. And so, Bird of Prey puts $5 into the chat asking for A/B testing. Ask the audience which thumbnail they prefer. So, let me take a look here at what you sent.
I got him!
And so Bird we'll take a look here. This is the thumbnail the Bird created. Live Trek review, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Necessary Evil with gold to cut on one side, a bird on the other, a little bird over bird, and Deep Space Nine in the middle and stuff, okay? And then the other one, basically bird thing in the middle, the Deep Space Nine station, and a couple of ships. So not Gul Dukat. Now, so I would say pick A if you like the one with Gul Dukat, B if you like the one that features Deep Space Nine. My vote, Bird of Prey, goes to B. I think the Deep Space Nine one looks smarter. For one thing, I think Gul Dukat looks a little blurry and too blue. I think that this one, the color balance is better. So that's just my humble opinion. Anyway, but for some reason, Darth Maul, they're trying to make Brie Larson a thing in the nerd community, and that's just not going to work. They don't realize that we're kind of done with Brie Larson. So, yeah. Rock solid in my headcanon, the Borg likely started out similar to the Cybermen in Doctor Who, but still enjoyed Anti-Trekker theory. I've never considered it myself. Mr. Captain says, Red Turd. Uh-oh, yes, I'm hurting a bit, and I'm going to be wrapping up pretty soon, just so you guys know. I think Species 8472 has been created by barbed wire. Wow, that's yeah. So, and it looks like from the vote, B's take it. There's only a couple. Let's say I think John DeMarco is the only one that voted for A. So Crazy Alexander. So I would say go with B. The German and grape are the rules in the description. Oh, the German and the grape. Gotcha. 7 of 9 was not the hottest of Star Trek. Okay, well, I respectfully disagree. If we sent Bird into space and he put into sleep vessel like the Botany Bay, would he become Khan in 300 years? No. He would still be Bird of Prey. How could Star Trek or Star Wars be ruined anymore? I think it could happen. Schromer thinks, I think that a Trek series involving the Sphere Builders could explain the different timelines having timeline crossover without Mikey Spock being the only hero, of course. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to ever go back to the Sphere Builders because Enterprise... the network believes Enterprise killed the franchise, even though it was really Voyager that killed the franchise. I never took what Spock said in the 2009 film that the Kelvin was the divergent point as the intent. That was just his speculation. We could tell it was an alternate in the first shot. Well, then, Darren, you have not paid attention to anything that the people at CBS and Paramount have said, including the recent timeline videos that they put on their website just in the last week. Yes, the Kelvin timeline is divergent from the Prime timeline. That has been the case all along, and I'm sorry, no disrespect intended to my friends over at Midnight's Edge, but there is zero evidence that there was some alternate timeline prior to that was this secret deal timeline between Bad Robot and CBS or anything. That is complete bogus. And I'm sorry, like I said, they say they have people behind the scenes to say it, great, but there's no evidence to support it. No publicly available evidence to support it. Now, my triple timeline theory rectifies that, but as far as any official canon, there is nothing to support that. Let's see. In the Picard series trailer, I was kind of surprised 7 of 9's actions, how she met with Picard in his house with her hair out, and the shootings or what she does, like if she's not the same. Yeah, that didn't feel like 7 of 9 at all. Alexander says, I would create a 4th timeline, this timeline where the Victorian baboon woman became the Empress of Starfleet with the support of the Baku and declare war to the Tribbles. That will be the Alexander Crazy Town timeline. By the way, Voyager 1 and 2 are still out there. Yes, they have crossed the heliopause and are heading out towards the Oort cloud. They've detected drastic yet uneven increase in cosmic radiations. Yes, I've seen some of that. Luke says they're beyond the sun's magnetic field now. The data suggests very diffused hot plasma, 30 to 50K Kelvin degrees. Darth Hearn says the Borg were created when you drop your phone in 2029 and it is hit by lightning and stays in the soil for 300 years and taken the soil to the Delta Quadrant, and they are the Borg because they... And then the chat jumped on me, so I lost track of where we were. They are Swedish phone company Bjorg. Darren says, I don't see the rubber puke aliens in Operation Annihilate as being related to the Borg, but it is well-edited video, and well-narrated. Thanks, I guess. But you see, here's the thing. Just saying you don't see it that's not, tell me why. What about the argument is, and I'm being genuine here, Darren. Don't just tell me, oh, it doesn't work, or, oh, I don't see it. That's not an argument. That's just being contrarian. If you don't like it and you don't think something fits, tell me why. Why is it that the only species that actually has a collective consciousness, assimilates others, and uses them to be, and forces them to do the will of the collective consciousness. How is that not the ideal source for the Borg? Oh no, Jadzia is way more beautiful than Ezri. Well, I'll agree with you on that. Let's see, Alexander, I want to see 7 of 9 naked in Picard. I don't, actually in Picard, that's a possibility, but I doubt it. I identify myself in Tonto. I feel like I'm heroic like Tonto. He's so cool. Yeah, good luck with that, Alexander. Good luck with that. And let's see. Roxod says, I think TOS was poorly written, campily acted, terrible stories. I think most of the episodes of Voyager are almost as poorly written. Well, I would say this. I think that you're wrong about the poorly written. Campily acted, well, it was produced in the 1960s, and unfortunately that was the acting style. It's just like when you look at movies from like the 30s and 40s and people are like, oh dear, what shall we do? It's just a different style of acting. Acting has evolved over the years. And in the modern era, acting is more subtle and more natural feeling than it was in the 60s. And in the 60s, it was more subtle and natural than it felt in the 40s, And you go back to the silent era and it was all complete over the top. Now, so if you want to complain about the style of the 60s, that's fine. As far as terrible stories and poorly written, I don't know what you're smoking. Yeah, there's some bad episodes for sure. There are some episodes that make me cringe, like And the Children Shall Lead is absolutely horrible. Turnabout Intruder is absolutely horrible. But there are some episodes that are incredibly good and ahead of their time. Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. You can't say that's a bad story. The Balance of Terror, The Doomsday Machine. There are the Enterprise Incident. There are a lot of classic episodes of Trek that are very well written. You just, you may not like them. They may not be to your taste, but to just say they're poorly written tells me that you don't understand the writing. TNG had soap opera level acting most of the time. I would agree with that. TNG had worse acting to me than TOS. And not only that, TNG was so over the top political in the first couple of seasons, it made me want to vomit. Everybody complains about the political stuff in Discovery. Rewatch the first 2 seasons of TNG. They are almost as bad. Any TOS mystery that's still unsolved, you think could be resurrected in future Trek? Sure. Where the Doomsday Machine came from, I would love to see. And I know they touched on that in the TNG book Vendetta, but I would like to see a follow up on the Doomsday Machine. That's one. Can Shatner be president? Well, he could, but I don't think he's running. Roxalt says, Antrigger and I may disagree regarding the Borg origins and TOS, but we both agree Bird of Prey 5 is an evil dictator. Yes, on that we will agree. Alexander says, Antrigger, I heard that Hulk Hogan will be casted as Captain Kirk in the next Star Trek timeline. That would be horrible. I think Brie Larson is screwing somebody high up at Disney, and that's why they're shipping her around. I don't know what it is, but it's not going to work. Robert Smith says, the only real things that I have a problem with Voyager is the horrifying things happen to the crew. In the next episode, they're all fine, and the fact that they have unlimited shuttlecrafts. Well, I think there's more to it than that. I mean, Voyager has the distinction, of course, of having the worst episode in all of Trek, and yes, that even includes Discovery with Threshold. Threshold is the worst episode of all of Trek, period. Comrade Detlov, I assume you're new. Welcome, my friend. Antrigger, hello. I have a question on where I start if I want to start watching Star Trek. Good question. There's a couple of ways you could do it. Number one, skip Discovery. I'm just being honest, because that will turn you off from the rest of Trek. It's nothing like the rest of Trek. That's its big problem. But you could start with Enterprise and then go to TOS and then TNG, Deep Space Nine, etc. Then number two, you could watch them in the order they were released. So TOS first, then TNG, etc. But then a lot of people, because they don't like the campy style of TOS, might start with TNG. But then if you really want to, and this is my honest opinion, if you don't like the campiness of TOS, if you don't like the preachiness of TNG, start with Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine is probably the best produced overall Star Trek series of all of them, but TOS has always been my favorite. If Nero didn't come through to create the new timeline, Kirk still wouldn't have been born in Iowa. So explain that. Not true. The reason that Kirk was born in space is because of the attack on the Kelvin. The Kelvin was on its way to Earth, and Kirk would have been born in Iowa had they not been attacked. Unfortunately, Kirk's mom, her labor was artificially accelerated because of the stress of the battle. Mr. Miles says, now I have a visual in my head, you screaming bird of prey as the camera pulls out, cuts the bird of prey in place of Khan, and says, he tasks me, and you keep missing the mark. Darren says, I'll tell you how they could ruin Star Wars even further. In the last shot of the next film, pull the camera back and reveal to an audience watching the story as a movie within the movie. That, yeah. Or better yet, at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, you find out that Riker was running a holodeck program the whole time. Roxanne says, they're simply the only species we've seen that assimilates. That doesn't mean they're the only ones who do it. They also said in canon that the Borg didn't always assimilate. Well, we're getting to that in the next video on the origin of the Queen and stuff and the changes of the Borg over time. As far as they're changing their practices as far as assimilation. However, that's the thing, Roxal. What I tried to do is to logically put things together within canon. Yeah, you could say that there's probably 1 billion species across the universe that assimilate other species, right? We'll make one up. We're going to call them the blurp, and the blurps come along and they assimilate people. Well, guess what? The blurp never appeared in Star Trek, so I'm not going to use that. I'm only going to use stuff that I find in Star Trek canon. That's the whole point of doing a theory like this, is to use what we already know and try to put the pieces together. You're just trying to think of something other than that because you don't want it to be involved with TOS. So, you know, all you're saying is it could be something else. Sure, you could say that about literally anything. There you go, asking me to make an argument in a stream chat again. As I said before, it's not really what this format is for. I only have so many characters to work with, can't debate. Well, fine, but then don't just say it sucked or it doesn't work. I had to see you naked men in new... I had you see naked men in new Watchmen show. Bird should review it. I assume, oh, you heard maybe. That you see naked men in a new Watchmen show. Bird should review it. Yeah, you'd probably enjoy that. Galadorn says TOS has the best stories. I actually tend to agree. Lita is hotter than 7 of 9, but I'd take either because I'm a guy. I don't think Lita is hotter than 7 of 9. That's just my personal opinion. Roxal says, I don't like 60s TV or movies. Fine. Well, admit your bias. That's perfectly fine. However, that doesn't change the fact that the TOS brain parasites are the best fit for the Borg. The Borg is the evolution of the Tribbles. 1/888 is Zamboni and transformed in a Borg. Wow. Okay. Hey, Darren, let's have an argument where I can pontificate and bloviate as much as I need while you are relegated to communicating with bumper stickers. No thanks. Well, then, like I said, then don't say you're wrong. If you don't want to have that's fine, Darren, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to pick on you, but if you don't want to have a fight, and that's perfectly fine. If you don't want to argue about it, then don't put a contrarian statement in like that, because I'm going to pick on something like that. Because if you simply say, your theory sucks, or your theory is wrong, or your theory doesn't hold water, then I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to say, well, tell me why. And if you refuse to do that in the chat, then don't say it. Don't take me on if you're not willing to take me on. And yes, you can have a conversation with the limited abilities of chat. It's possible. You may not like the format, and I understand that, but that's what Google has given us. TOS was good as the Lone Ranger. Okay. I'm not a big Lone Ranger fan, but okay. Admiral Saval says, no, Threshold is the best episode of Trek. Sorry, Admiral Saval, got to disagree with you there. Darth Ren says, ain't Trek, I think it's more shill me too them if they don't. That could be. That could be. Herpicus Mick Derpington says, ain't Trigger, for the love of the Emperor, please read the Horus Heresy series of books. With the way of sci-fi is going, 40K is going to be the only game in town. Problem is, you're asking me to read books, and I'm dyslexic. And that's a very difficult thing for me to do. And I don't have time for books on tape, because as it is, trying to produce YouTube videos, and especially with the pain I'm in, takes pretty much all the time I'm able to sit up in a day. I think that Starfleet has been created from Sequest. That makes no sense, but okay. Aberjam says, much like Voyager became V'ger, the Doomsday Machine is what became Brie Larson after we all got tired of her and launched her into space. Makes as much sense as anything else. Andrew, ever watched the Resident Evil movies? Yes, I've watched all of them. And I liked the first couple. And then it steadily went downhill from there. Darren says, Kirk would have been born in space regardless of whether Narada came through time anyway. Based on what? All we knew was that she was in labor when they were attacked. And the attack happened first. And I don't know if you have kids or not, Darren, but a woman who is in late stages of pregnancy and then put into a harrowing, stressful, and yes, violent situation can go into early labor, and that is what happened. So there's nothing to say that they weren't simply on their way to Earth, and he would have been born in Iowa if not for the attack. Berta Prey says, does it say in Star Trek 2009 they were on their way to Earth? No, the show, the movie opens with the attack. You know that. Trek 95 says, Star Wars would be saved if it were a Riker hologram. Okay. Luke says, Andrew, do you think will one day a realistic ship numbers in sci-fi fleets? Those shows keep pulling Navy-sized vessel spaceships in their wars, yet only pack a couple of dozen or hundreds. Well, you know, and I know this is horrible to say, but they did actually kind of use better numbers in Discovery. Ugh, I hate saying that. But they said the Starfleet was what? I can't remember. 5,000 ships? Robert Smith says, the movie Judgment of Nuremberg had Shatner meet his idol Spencer Tracy. That's why Shatner didn't have a problem to aging in Star Trek films since Spencer Tracy did so well. I did not know that. Darren says, a hallmark of fan fiction is that fan fiction never comes up with something new, but rather further expands on what has already been established in a given narrative. That's true, and that's kind of what I was doing with that theory. Kirk, played by Hulk Hogan, could do leg drops on the enemies. Yeah, but it would still be dumb. And Hulk Hogan is too old to play a young Kirk. Given how many Navy ships Earth could field now, as one united planet, one would imagine an interstellar empire to have hundreds of thousands. Not necessarily hundreds of thousands, but at least thousands. Rock Solid says, I've completely admitted my bias against TOS. I never denied it. I understand. But the thing is that don't let that... Now, Rock Solid, acknowledging your bias is one thing. Just like I've admitted my bias against TNG, right? I get that. That doesn't change the fact that some of the best episodes of all Trek have been TNG episodes, right? It doesn't change the fact that the Inner Light, Chain of Command, Best of Both Worlds are all among the best of Trek, right? It doesn't change the fact that the single best alien enemy antagonist that Trek ever came up with is the Borg, and they were invented in TNG. And every iteration of the Borg after TNG sucked. So the best enemy was on that show, right? So I admit those things despite my bias against TNG. That being said, you need to put your bias aside for a minute and just look at the facts. Instead of just look at, I don't like TOS, look at the actual facts. Pay attention to what I say in the video, because everything I say in the video you can verify in the episode. But if you don't want to watch it, you can trust me. The best show from the early 60s is the original Twilight Zone. Well, it's a good show, I'll say that, but Star Trek was always my favorite back then. I didn't say you were wrong, I just said I don't agree or didn't see it, that's all. It wasn't taking you on. Well, but if you're going to say I don't agree or didn't see it, that is saying I'm wrong. That's just a more polite way of saying it, or less blunt way of saying it, shall we say. But if you're going to say I'm wrong, or you're going to say you don't agree, or you're going to say that it doesn't hold water, or however you want to phrase it, then you need to have an argument as to why. Trek 95 says, Uhura was the hottest Trek woman. Well, in my official countdown, she came in at number 2. What is the role of the Victorian baboon woman in TOS? In TOS, she was the inspiration for all the future generations of baboon women. Nightbreeze says, me poo, my friend. Yosef says, enter. Do you not say it correctly that it is an Emmy-winning episode? Threshold is the worst episode in Trek. Oh, yeah, you're right. The Emmy-winning episode Threshold is the worst episode of Trek. That is true. What did they get the Emmy for? Makeup or thing, I think? Alexander says, Mrs. Antrekker reads you bedtime stories. Only when I'm a good boy. Roxanne says, take on me, take me on, take on me, I'll be gone. Yes, I love that song. Death Dealer says, "Hey, your best Trek episode is Waltz, where Dol Dukat goes nuts and finally snaps and is a great monologue." That is a good one. I will give you that. But I still think that, I mean, if I had to pick one just off the top of my head as far as best episode, I would probably say Chain of Command. I don't think the writers cared where Kirk was originally born. You're probably right, but at the same time, since the attack happens before his birth, and the attack is the official divergent point, there's nothing to say he wouldn't be born on Earth if the attack hadn't to happen. The entire series is available on audiobooks, if I remember correctly. The ones I've listed are very well voiced. I don't doubt that, Herpicus, but the problem is time. That is always my enemy when it comes to stuff like that. Taking on a whole new franchise like 40K is something I just don't have time to do. Now, I will tell you this. Once two things happen. Number one, my leg heals up to where I'm not in constant pain. Number two, I get the channel to a point where I'm doing this full time. Then I can start looking at that. But right now, it's just not feasible. That's the only problem. Let's see. Enter Captain Kirk's mother was in the Labor Party, and that's why he was born in space. Oh, that's bad. Darth Maul says, "Did you rank the women of Star Trek by show, or were they ranked by the entire franchise?" They were ranked by the entire franchise. And classic Uhura, Nichelle, came in at number 2. Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9, came in at number 1. And let's see. What's more likely, that there were 5 lights or Frank and Freddie were lovers? Which is more likely that Frank and Freddie were lovers? And let's see. The best Trek is any episode with Wesley Crusher, and it says Wesley Crusher. Hulk Hogan could be cast as Jar Jar Binks. He could do leg drops on the Stormtroopers. That I would buy. And by the way, if you haven't seen South Park, Hulk Hogan would make a great transsexual athlete in South Park. For you and all viewers, please be sure to like, comment, and check your subscriptions. I'm getting a constant unknown errors and can't comment on the stream. Thank you, Captain, for mentioning that. And yes, do check, particularly if there's channels you genuinely care about. Not just me, but any channels that you care about. Make sure you're still subscribed to them, because the YouTube algorithm has, in fact, been unsubscribing people from channels. And it's very annoying. I've had it happen. I've been unsubscribed from a couple of channels that I love, and I keep getting resubscribed to channels that I hate. I don't know why, but the YouTube algorithm keeps insisting that I want to be subscribed to John Campea. I can't stand John Campea, but it keeps resubscribing me to him. On the flip side, it keeps unsubscribing me from Nerdrotic. Gary and I are good buddies. That makes me mad, but yeah. Wesley says, "Can't stay long, building you a capital ship." Awesome, my friend. Can't wait to see it. Abijam says, "Who knew when Trek came up with the Borg, they were making a prophetic commentary on current year's SJWs?" Very true. By the way, well, I'll get into that later. Maybe a future Trek we should see Voyager 1 through 5. Well, we did see one of the Voyager probes get blown up by Klingons in Star Trek 5. What was the role of Hulk Hogan in TOS? Hulk Hogan in TOS played the role of a bad joke. When people would talk about the 20th century, they would always refer to it as the Hogan era. Luke says, "There are hundreds of species in the Federation, each one having at least a home world and a handful of colony worlds. Earth itself would field hundreds of ships, plus Andoria, Vulcan, etc." Yes, but then you got to wonder, okay, so how many of those ships, and this is something that is something that I think I'll probably eventually do a video on, is like, how big is the Federation? Is that if you consider that you have Starfleet, which are Federation starships, which are primarily manned by Earth. You know, that's why the majority of Starfleet personnel are humans. But then you have the Vulcan Armada, the Andorian military, the Tellarite military, etc. Now, those guys tend to just defend their individual planets, while Starfleet actually patrols interstellar space, where they're the ones that enforce the Federation law as opposed to local jurisdiction. And so what you could say is, like, the Vulcan Armada would be the equivalent of a state militia or some kind of state military, whereas Starfleet is the federal military. And in times of war, of course, you would think that they would all team up, but unfortunately, and that's one of the problems I have with the Deep Space Nine Dominion War arc, is that we didn't see Vulcan ships or Andorian ships or anything. We just saw Federation starships. Roxaw says, "The best Trek of all time is without a doubt In the Pale Moonlight." The next was where the beanie character came in. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the beanie character, but Pale Moonlight was a good episode. I think it's a little overrated, to be honest with you, but I do think it's a very good episode. And when I say a little overrated, I don't mean I would probably give it a good 9 to 9.5 out of 10. It's a really, really good episode. It's just that everybody says, oh, it's the best episode, and I ask why, and so, because it's dark. Well, that doesn't make it good. That just makes it dark. And I think it's actually a little too dark. Also, Kirk had a brother named Sam in TOS in the 2009 film. He did not. Well, that's the funny thing is because that was a mistake that they intended for the kid that Kirk waved at when he was driving his uncle's Corvette, or was it his uncle or stepfather's or whatever, Corvette, or was it a Corvette? Whatever, the sports car, the antique car. That was supposed to be Sam originally, and then for some reason they changed it to Johnny, I think. Don't know why. Darth Maul says, if you sell merch, can you create a t-shirt with the phrase, I survived the eugenics wars, and all I get was this poop shirt. That's nice. I like it. There are only 4 lights. Yes. Darren says, that wasn't Hulk Hogan on South Park. That was Macho Man. Now, I know, but I said Hulk Hogan would fit in. Yes, I know that was Macho Man in the episode, but I'm saying Hulk Hogan could fit in there. Marvel made a 4K box set of Infinity War Saga. Costs a lot of money. Of course it does. In the top 10 women of Star Trek, some people propose the USS Enterprise. Yeah, I know, that's kind of weird. We won't see Hulk Hogan again after his racist rant was leaked years ago. I don't know anything about that. And now we have to deal with this Copa BS, Trigger. It's going to kill my animation channel. Yeah, I know. Can you tell me who actually built the Roger Corby android? The machines there did. I believe that I can't remember the name of the guy that played Lurch. That was the one android. I think he actually repaired Corby when they found him. Over 1,000 worlds are in the Federation. It depends on when you're talking, though, too. I think Starfleet should have been shown as a massive fleet. I agree. In the Federation, there are a lot of chips, mostly barbecue chips. Benny. Okay, but Benny. Who's Benny? I'm still lost. Bird of Prey says he thinks I'm overrated. Well, Bird of Prey, you're wrong. Death Dealer says, I still wish we could have seen more of the Mirror Universe, like an alliance ties to invade our universe. I agree, and I think that what they did on Deep Space Nine ruined the Mirror Universe, which really kind of sucked. Luke says, enter, we've seen all Vulcan crews during the Dominion War demonstrating that other species could field Starfleet ships. We just rarely see them because the shows focus on human crews. Well, you're right. They even mentioned in the original series that I can't remember what the name of the ship was, but that there was another starship in the Immunity Syndrome that was manned entirely by Vulcans. But it's not to say that there are no other aliens that serve in Starfleet. It's just that Starfleet is predominantly human. And in fact, they do refer to Starfleet as Earth quite commonly in Trek. But the point of it is that, but there are still Vulcan ships. There are still, Andorian ships. We just never see them except for in Enterprise. The best episode of Star Trek is each episode was 7 of 9. Of course you would say that. Darren says deleted scenes don't count, and that by wave it was so-called Johnny, so that's evidence the timeline diverged before the Narada. Fine, Darren, whatever. I'm just going by what they said, and what all the official timeline stuff is that the Kelvin incident, and again, you want to go back to what you guys like to argue. Just because you didn't see Sam doesn't mean he doesn't exist. It just means you didn't see him. It's good because it shows the agony a soldier goes through when trying to win a war, how even a moral man can take immoral decisions. Yes and no. As far as in the Pale Moonlight, I'm sorry, there's a difference between, you have to do horrible things like shoot people and stuff like that. That's what it takes to win a war, is you have to be willing to kill and be brutal and all that. It doesn't mean you have to become an absolute slimeball like Cisco did. So no, I don't agree as far as in order to win a war, you have to be as deceptive and evil as your enemy. That's a load of crap. I think Antrigger is so underrated he should have 50,000 subs. Thank you so much, Trek95, and I agree. Alexander says, who would win a fight between the Victorian Baboon Woman and Hulk Hogan? Oh, the Victorian Baboon Woman for sure. Captain MKG says, DS9 episode with Benny, Far Beyond the Stars. It's not ringing a bell for some reason. Average says, number one Star Trek woman is Ivanova. I know she's Babylon 5, but I don't care. I'm sending her across dimension through a wormhole. Fair enough. I did like her, though. Enterprise is a beautiful ship, and if she was a woman, she would be beautiful, so I can see why I would take number one to some. I don't. I love the Enterprise, especially the Constitution, but, you know, sorry. I just don't see it as a true female. Trek 95 says, Bird of Prey 5, he could have 100k subs if Mrs. Antrigger were to sing. That's true, too. Darren says, I don't have a problem with Cisco didn't Pale Moonlight, besides the Romulans had it coming. Wow. Okay. I have a big problem with some of what Cisco did. And Bird of Prey says Cisco did nothing wrong. Really? Okay. I'll let you believe that. Alexander says, Hulk Hogan could be cast as Uhura. That's just sick. Cisco plays the writer Benny in the 30. Oh, that one. That one. I'm sorry. I think that episode is overrated, too. I think that episode is just, honestly, a cheap attempt at playing the, hey, let's do an episode about racism, even though racism is not as relevant as it was back when Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. And it's too on the nose. If you want to do something about racism, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield was freaking genius, because they show both sides of racism, and you didn't even realize until halfway through the episode that they were doing it. So I think that was real genius writing. As far as you know, the having Benny be writing the stories in the future, but then because he's black, he doesn't get his stories published and stuff. That's just, you know, I'm sorry, we don't live in the 1930s anymore. Mr. Cat says, I heard Bird of Prey likes Rational Roundtable better than you. I would not be surprised. Luke says, why did the showrunners abandon the use of mounted laser cannons or phaser cannons for ground Starfleet teams when they need to bust in a stronghold? Because they're idiots. Alexander says, Entry, we all want MCU Aunt May naked right now. I don't think we all do. The Betazoid officer on Voyager that shuttled Tom Paris to Voyager is hot. She even said she was warm and sensual. I don't remember that particular scene, but I'm sure you do very well. It shocks me that you didn't like that episode of Deep Space Nine with Benny, since it was so much like TOS episode. It was nothing like a TOS episode. And Average Jam says, congratulations, you got caught up. I did, and that's why I am going to actually wrap it up here, because it is getting late, and I got to get a little bit of rest, and then I need to actually get some work done. I got to get the credits redone and then start working on the next couple of videos. Darren says, the situation Far Beyond the Stars was that as if it was a test for Cisco. They were trying to break his spirit. It was Paul Wraith thing. Okay, I thought it was just a alternate reality kind of thing. Death Dealer says, Patterns of Force is a good TOS episode as well, where the alien culture is influenced by 1930s Nazi Germany, all because Federation historian, yes, John Stockton. You're very correct. I did like that one. All right, guys. So with that, I know it's impossible to keep 100% caught up, Broxall, because people are always entering in new chats. But yeah, whatever. Thanks for hanging out with me, and have a good one. Take care, and don't forget to hang out with Bird of Prey later, even though he's a complete jerk and doesn't deserve your support. And how did I know Rock Solid was going to throw a buck in just to piss me off, because jerk. After all that stuff about the TOS sucking, and you and I need to, I really don't understand that, Rock Solid. How can you be so into retro gaming and yet you think TOS is too campy? That blows my mind. It really does. I don't understand it at all, because you like campy games, but yeah.
Hey, you want to learn about Jesus?
There's no such thing as hooker-client confidentiality.
Yes. The classic among classics. So thank you, Rock Solid. I do appreciate it. Because retro gaming to me starts in 1985, not 1965. It's still campy. It's still cheesy. And so you like one campy format, but not another. So I think that makes you a hypocrite. Is that the right term? Yeah, I think it is. Dang you! Thought I was going to make it that time. Alexander likes radio shows. Well, you know, I actually like some of the old Shadow radio series. That's actually pretty good. And Nicole, I had a Pong machine when I was a kid. That was my first video game console. Then the next one I got was a PlayStation 2. So that's how long I didn't have anything new. So Roxaw, meet my friend, the double standard. Yes,
Hello,
so you definitely embrace the double standard, Roxaw. That much.
I got him! Great kid! Don't get cocky!
Yeah, so rock solid, at least you admit it, you embrace the double standard. One of the very first super chats ever. Why we were picking on lore so much back then, why the heck not? Trek 95 liked the Star Wars radio series. I don't think I've ever listened to the Star Wars radio series. Thomas says, I have an Atari 2600 in a box in my basement. Very cool. I never had an Atari 2600. I was always jealous of my friends that did. But yeah, I had actually, it wasn't even Pong. It was Breakout, which is like Pong for one. Talk about, And Roxanne will agree on that. Ratchet and Clank was awesome.
I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan. I love men. But that's me saying it, not Darth Revan.